A lot of my videos recently have been talking about NIL in college football one way or the other. It's taken over the sport, whether you think that's good or it's bad. On Thursday morning, Ohio State head coach Ryan Day had some pretty interesting comments surrounding name, image, and likeness and how it's going to affect Ohio State. He put a price on how much money he believes will be needed to keep the Ohio State roster together. His number? Well, it may surprise you. Before we get to today's video, make sure to smash that subscribe button and turn on those notifications if you're new to my channel. If you're watching this video, odds are that you love college football, and odds are you aren't subscribed to my channel. So make sure to subscribe to one of the best college football communities here on YouTube. Also, make sure to drop a like on this video as well. It helps with that YouTube algorithm and helps share the video with more college football fans. Plus, it only takes a second to do. As I mentioned, Ryan Day spoke on Thursday morning. Now, all of this information comes courtesy of Doug Lemercies from Cleveland.com. According to his article, Day was speaking to about 100 members of the Columbus business community. Ryan Day put a name, image, and likeness price tag on what he believes is going to take to keep the Ohio State football roster together. According to Ryan Day, that price tag is $13 million. Now, personally, I'm still trying to figure out whether or not that number is too high or whether it's too low. I know we've joked about Texas A&M reportedly spending $30 million on their recruiting class, but I think it's safe to assume that it wasn't even in that ballpark, especially when looking at a team like Ohio State needing $13 million to keep the roster together. To a lot of programs at the FBS level, I'm sure that number is insanely high, and a number that simply will not ever be reached. Now, for blue blood programs, I don't know, that number seems lower than what I personally would have expected. In the article, it mentions how at $13 million for an 85-man scholarship football team, that would come out to about $150,000 per player, which is actually a pretty good chunk of change. As I mentioned though, not every player is going to be making that much money, if any money at all, and the better calculation is something like $500,000 each for the 26 players that you can't live without. Ohio State was hosting the event on campus to unveil an NIL corporate ambassador program in order to encourage businesses to hire Ohio State athletes through the athletic department. Businesses will get the athletes as endorsers, and they can provide internship and educational opportunities in which the athletes will get paid for. But the event was also a clear message from Ohio State that they need a certain amount of money to keep the current roster intact. In addition to Ryan Day, athletic director Gene Smith also spoke to those in attendance. Smith said that schools are basically directly paying recruits through NIL right now, which isn't technically allowed by the NCAA, but it isn't being enforced whatsoever. So Smith went on to say that the Buckeyes aren't going to get into the world of encouraging straight payments for recruits. He's essentially saying that he wants Ohio State players to be making their money through all the endorsements and all the opportunities they're getting once they get to the program. We all know how quickly NIL and the transfer portal is going to impact college football, especially over the next few years since it's still in the early stages. Ryan Day made a pretty interesting comparison as he compared the situation to a speed limit. If the speed limit is 45 miles per hour and you drive 45 miles per hour, a lot of people are going to pass you. If you go too fast, you're going to get pulled over. Essentially, he's saying Ohio State has to find the middle ground of what they're able to do in regards to NIL. Day said that the Buckeyes have been gathering information by talking to recruits and their families and getting a sense of what other schools might be discussing in regards to potential NIL deals. He said he believes right now that the top-tier quarterbacks require at least $2 million in NIL money. He also added that major offensive tackles and edge rushers are worth about $1 million. Again, those numbers aren't official, but that's what it sounds like the going rate is. It could be higher or lower given different circumstances. Some of the numbers that have been tossed around since last summer are pretty remarkable. Former Ohio State quarterback Quinn Ewers reportedly signed a $1.4 million NIL deal before even taking a snap at Ohio State. Nick Saban said that Bryce Young was approaching $1 million in NIL money before the 2021 season even began. Then The Athletic reported earlier this year that an unnamed 5-star quarterback in the 2023 recruiting class has agreed to a deal that could pay him upwards of $8 million. Now, if I were to guess, that might be Arch Manning, but then again, that just goes to show the numbers these players are making is truly insane. If you can't match those numbers, other teams might have a chance to pluck key players away from your roster. Ryan Day said that every player on every team could potentially go into the transfer portal when the season ends and field calls from other schools in regards to who's going to be offering more money. Now, I've discussed this a few times in my other videos, but essentially players are going to leave if they have a chance to earn more money at another program. Even if they don't go to different schools, they could still put their name in the transfer portal as an attempt to get more money from the current program, essentially saying that their program has to match what another school is offering or else they're going to leave. One phone call and they're out the door. We cannot let that happen at Ohio State. I'm not trying to sound the alarm, I'm just trying to be transparent about what we're dealing with. So Ryan Day set the price at $13 million. That would include money offered to players by the outside collectives that have already formed to pay Ohio State players, and it would include this new brand ambassador program. Again, this whole situation just seems really weird. The purpose of NIL originally was so that players could get endorsements from local companies and profit off their name, whether that came via commercials or autograph signings. Now we have teams publicly saying that they need a certain amount of money from boosters in order to afford the best roster possible. This is what I've personally been worried about all along, because there are going to be a certain number of programs who can easily afford that $13 million a year price point, but there are going to be a lot of programs who I'm sure won't even surpass $5 million a year. This is just the beginning for NIL. Now, I know we think it's been crazy this offseason with the transfer portal and recruiting and all that, but the truth is, we haven't even seen just how crazy it can be yet. Next offseason in college football is truly going to be 5 times crazier than this one, and college football as a whole is changing as we know it. Some people think for the better, and some people think for the worse. So, looking at that number of 13 million, I think that Ohio State is easily going to reach that number and likely surpass it. By publicly saying it, Ryan Day is letting everyone know that Ohio State is open for business, and they're going to do whatever they can to make sure they generate that $13 million. This might have a domino effect, but it also might not. There may be coaches who have seen what Ryan Day said, and now they're thinking they need to get a price point out there so boosters know what might be needed in order to keep players at their programs. You know how in every sport you can go online and see how much money every team is spending on players? You can track how much each player is making and how much money the team is spending. Well, we're probably not too far off from that in college football. I'm sure teams like Ohio State, Alabama, Texas A&M, and Georgia are going to be the big spenders, battling it out to see who ultimately spends more on the team during the season. So what are your thoughts on Ryan Day saying that Ohio State needs $13 million to keep their roster together? Do you think there are going to be other programs that come out and say how much money they'll need in order to keep their roster together? Whatever your thoughts are on the entire situation, let me know in the comment section down below. Before you leave, make sure to smash that subscribe button and turn on those notifications if you're new to my channel. If you love college football, then this is definitely the place for you. Also, make sure to drop a like on this video as well. It helps with the YouTube algorithm and helps share the video with more college football fans. Plus, it only takes a second to do. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you all in my next video.